Today, with the restructuring of the State Security Service, many papers from secret archives are becoming publicly available. Of course, no one is going to naively believe that people are shown documents in their original form. Almost certainly, everything important remains shrouded in secrecy. However, from scraps of information one can get a rough idea of the affairs that were going on under the roof of the State Security Committee. Blue Folder. Igor Sinitsyn, assistant to KGB Chief Andropov, in an interview with Observer magazine, spoke about how he saw a dossier on the UFO phenomenon in his boss's office. This happened in 1977, after an incomprehensible, huge object appeared in the sky above Peterzavodskoye. Sinitsyn's duties included monitoring publications in the foreign press, so he brought Andropov a translation of an article from Stern magazine about the case in Petrozavodsk. The head of the KGB carefully studied the material, then took out a blue folder from the table and invited Sinitsyn to familiarize himself with its contents. This folder contained reports from counterintelligence officers about encounters with UFOs. Andropov asked to take all the materials to the chairman of the USSR Military Industrial Commission, Kirilenko. And he, in turn, left the documents with himself. After a short time, by order of Andropov, a program was developed obliging every military serviceman to report all cases and sightings of UFOs. The most interesting information ended up in the blue folder. In 1991, at the request of cosmonaut pilot Pavel Popovich, then president of the All-Union UFO Association, Ksenia Papka was transferred to her disposal. There were 124 pages of printed text. Reports, explanatory notes, reports on encounters with unidentified objects. For example, reports from Captain Chernikov, Warrant Officer Voloshin and Private Tishayev indicate that the UFO is a disk with a diameter of 4 to 5 meters with a hemisphere on top. It glowed brightly, moved silently, sometimes descending and hovering above the ground. These objects also emitted signals reminiscent of a photo flash. Other documents from the entrance hall of the folder describe a UFO contact that occurred in 1984 over Turkmenistan. Air defense systems spotted a spherical object flying along the coast of the Caspian Sea at an altitude of 2,000 meters. He was heading towards the state border. He did not respond to the request. 2 fighters were scrambled into the air, but all attempts to shoot down the UFO failed. Moreover, when they started shooting at the object, it sharply dropped to 100 meters above the ground. To a height that does not allow a fighter to fire at it. The KGB trained professional killers. Very little is known about the department involved in the liquidation of unwanted persons on the territory of the USSR and abroad. There is some information in the memoirs of KGB officers who fled to the West. A little more information. I managed to get it thanks to a Secret Service employee talking in his old age. In the early 90s, they found themselves on the territory of the former Soviet republics. Many of these people felt abandoned, at the mercy of fate, and no longer feeling obliged to keep Soviet-era secrets, they shared them with journalists. Until the early 90s, the West did not even imagine that the state security committees had an entire department whose tasks included murder and other acts of intimidation and retribution. Of course, it was known that the Soviet special services were engaged in the physical elimination of undesirables, but no one could have imagined that this was being done by a specialized structure, which included educational institutions, a huge staff of scientific, technical, medical, and other services. The training of saboteur killers was carried out by the newly formed Department B, which was later transformed into the 8th Department, Department C. Department B had a broader specialization than its predecessor, which behind the back was called the Murder Department. Its functions began to include preparing and carrying out sabotage in various public services in transport and communications facilities within the country and abroad, recruiting especially valuable agents, and many more previously unusual functions. Employee training has become more targeted. The Balashikha Training Center was completely refocused on their training, and the period of study for a specialist increased from 1.5 years to 3 years. It's hard to say whether it's true or not, but veterans recalled such a specific moment. All graduates who were supposed to work as liquidators in the future had to take exams. They say it was necessary to successfully carry out one liquidation, after which the graduate was considered a full-fledged employee. Operations were carried out both within the USSR and in the West. The dropout rate was quite large. As a rule, no more than 50% of graduates fully completed the task. Many of those who perfectly mastered the theory simply physically could not remove the person. Naturally, such people were not fired by the KGB, they were simply assigned another job. Secret operation and the KGB. Like the CIA, the KGB, during its existence, conducted a huge number of secret operations around the world. To date, we have learned most of the secrets kept behind the walls of the KGB thanks to a man named Vasily Mitrokhin. For 30 years, Mitrokhin served as an employee of the Archives Department, the first main directorate of the KGB of the USSR. Afterwards, he switched sides to Great Britain, handing over an archive of secret KGB files amounting to 25,000 pages. From this material, the West learned about at least 10 of the strangest secret operations ever carried out by KGB agents. For example, in the period from 1959 to 1972, the KGB collected information about American power plants, dams, oil pipelines and other facilities, infrastructure, in preparation for an operation that could lead to a disruption in the power supply of all of New York. After KGB agents selected targets they believed were vulnerable, they moved into a safe house near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There, KGB agents attempted to plan and carry out a series of attacks on the American power grid. The KGB developed a cunning plan to destroy 2 large hydroelectric dams, Hungry Horse and Flathead Hat, located in Montana. If these 2 dams failed, it would paralyze the entire state and surrounding region's power supply. The attack was to begin from the Hungry Horse Dam. The agents planned to destroy power line supports located on the top of a high mountain slope. That would cut off power to the dam for a certain time and would not allow a prompt response to a failure. The agents would then seize the controls of the Hungry Horse dams and destroy them. This attack could have disrupted the entire New York State's power supply. Next, the agents wanted to attack an oil pipeline running between Canada and the United States. This secret operation, called KGB, was planned for more than 10 years. The KGB even thought about destroying an oil refinery in Canada that supplied fuel to America. All these attacks on the American power grid were part of a huge plan to destroy the city of New York. But, as we understand, for unknown reasons, this operation was never carried out. The KGB gained access to 400 computers of the American military. In the 1980s, the KGB was looking for a way to help them steal American military secrets through 2 relatively new predecessors to the Internet, ARPANET and MILNET. In order to do this, they found and recruited a man named Marcus Gass, who after some time became a Soviet spy and one of the most legendary computer hackers in world history. Marcus began his hacking mission at the University of Bremen. Away from the American military computers he was trying to access. After some effort, Gass was able to hack 400 computers used by U.S. Army personnel. Some of them were at American military bases in Germany and Japan, but the bulk were in the Pentagon. UTC was able to guess the correct password and gain access to the U.S. Department of Defense database and a number of important Army documents. Gass's extensive hacking efforts went undetected until a system administrator and astronomer named Clifford Stahl began investigating what he initially thought was a minor computing error at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Employees who conducted scientific research for the U.S. Department of Energy, Clifford tried to understand how this small mistake was made. After identifying an unauthorized and unknown user who had been using the lab's computer systems for 9 seconds, Clifford dug further and discovered that the unauthorized user was a skilled hacker who had gained access to the lab's computers through a security hole. Thank you all for your attention and bye.